Hi, I'm Craig Phillips, and in this video I'm going to show you how to build your own chicken coop out of reclaimed wood. Now the size and shape is up to yourself, or depending on how many chickens you plan to have. I'm going to have 3 of them, so I've built this one 1200mm long and 800mm wide. So it's a rectangular shaped box. We've got a ramp coming up into it from one side, which of course allows the chickens to come in and can be closed away of a night time. We've got a sloping roof to allow all the rain to drain off on one side. The back of it comes down on hinges to allow you access inside to be able to clear it all out regularly. Then on the opposite side here, of course, we have the most important part where the chickens are going to lay the eggs. So I've built a separate box here. I've left it off at the moment, but this is going to be mounted onto the side. But I wanted you to be able to see, I've cut out some arches around here to allow each of the chickens to get into their little zones, closed off, nice and dark and secure, so they lay the eggs. But like with all builds that we do, we always advise you to do your own drawings and set out your dimensions before you start. Now the tools you're going to require for your chicken coop: a miter saw, jigsaw, clamps, screws, safety protection, cordless drills, tape measure, set square, track saw. If you don't have a track saw, a hand saw is fine. Now my chicken coop is going to be a rectangular shape, so I'm going to be building the 2 sides, which is 800mm wide, both exactly the same. Now if we look at the way this is designed, I've got these corner pieces all the way around this outside made out of the skids. These are the strong pieces underneath the side of your pallets before you take off the slats. And then of course we've got the slats going across that way. So I've started cutting down some of them and I've started screwing them to the actual underside skids here to make the frame down. I'm laying these in position. I've already measured them up and chopped them down on the chop saw. I'm just pulling them nice and tight, close together. And I started off, of course, using my large set square to make sure the corners are nice and square when you're setting them out. Screwed them all down to here. I'll screw a couple more of them down. I'm putting 2 screws in each slat at either end, so it's nice and secure. Once I've got so far up, the height of my chicken coop is also going to be around about 800mm. So now them slots are firmly screwed down into the skids. I'll refer back to my first side, and as you can see, it's sloping down here for the roof space. I'm going to do the exact same on this, mark it down and cut it through. But you can see I've got 2 pieces on the side, which is acting as the frame and the strength. On this section, I've actually got 4. Now the reason being, this side is going to be the entrance. We're going to cut out an arch here where the chickens are going to walk in. This is why we need the extra struts either side to hold these slats in position. So the back height of the coop is going to be 9.25. This is about here. And the front is going to be the lower end. It's going to be 8.25, which is about here. Nice prominent line through there. Now you could make this cut using a circular saw or even a hand saw, but if you have got a track saw, it makes it a little bit easier and quicker. The track itself acts as a guide, gives you a nice steady straight line cut on there, and the bottom of the saw slips into the track. The rubber underneath grips it into position. Now the great thing about it is it's got a nice deep cutting blade, will go right the way through the slats I need to cut and also the actual slithers I've got underneath, but I have propped it up so it doesn't cut my bench as well. Now we have the shape of our side to match the opposite side here. Slope running down and a slope running down there. All we need to do now is fix these together and create the back. Now the construction of the back is very similar to the sides. I'm building a frame out of the skids below, the stronger timber, and then I'm putting the slats across the back. Now these are the full length, 1200 millimeters wide. So I've screwed the bottom one in, made sure it was square again. I'll screw the second slat into position. And you can see I've screwed one up at the very top. Again, that keeps it all nice and square. However, it leaves me an opening in here that I need to use for later. But what I want to do first is bring this up. So this is the back. Now I want to fix my two sides on here. It's a little bit tricky building a box this size on your own. So luckily for me, I'm going to bring in the wife, Mrs. DIY, if you could come and just hold that for me. Oh, you've got the glue. Forward thinking, I like it. I've got one side panel here. So if you just keep that nice and square upright for me. I'm going to place this in, just offer it up first, see if it does grab. That's it, nice and square. Perfect. Now I'm going to screw this in and firmly fix it together, but I am going to apply a bit of external waterproof glue all the way along that edge, so it's nice and strong once it dries. Okay, so I'm just going to push that against. I'm going to clamp it up, nice and square, love, on there. Clamp it together. This is where you need the extra hands, just holding it into position. Squeeze that in. The next one. Again, just double checking that it is all nice and square and upright. Squeeze them together. And then I'm going to use this drill to drill some large pilot holes into this side here, right the way through the slat, right the way through the skids below, about 50 or 60 millimeters in. And I'm going to use some longer screws, pop them into the pilot hole and drive them in with the screwdriver. Nice and deep, so they countersink in past the wood, and that always helps when you drill a nice deep pilot hole in first. I can release the clamps and it should stand upright on its own. Thank you very much. There we go. Perfect. So that's nice and solid. Now what I'm going to do, the exact same on the opposite side there, and then I'm going to build a door for in this section, which of course is going to fold down to give you access inside to be able to clear the back of the coop out. So the back hatch is simple to construct. I've got 1200 millimeter pieces of slats, the standard size, and then I've cut a piece here to fix these lot together. I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 of them fit inside that gap in there. You may have to plane a little one down if it's a bit too long or too short. So now they're fixed together, although this hatch is going to move because of course it opens and closes, I want to brace it up a little bit better. So I'm going to get myself an old piece of slat. I'm going to fit it diagonally across all the sections, just like that. Take my tape, again, a little off-cut piece of wood, just offering it up over the edge of that one, and the same again this side. I'm going to cut him down and fix him into position. Now, our door should that'll fit perfect when it's hinged. Now the front section is very similar to the two sides and the back. We've got our standard 1200 millimeter slats. We've got our upright, the slithers from the bottom of them, holding it all in, making a structural frame in there. Of course, we are going to fix it to the front here. We don't have to have it opening like the back. I've started screwing the slats in here to hold this frame into place. I'm just going to glue these edges now, screw them, the front frame to the back frame. I'll pop a little bit of glue on the both sides, which will really help with its strength once it's dry. And then I'm going to drive some long 80mm screws right the way through the two frames, holding them in position. Squeeze that together, just grab it in situ with my clamp. There we go, just making sure he's nice and flush, and the same again on the opposite side. I'm going to drill some large pilot holes right the way in there. Put them 80mm screws in. The pilot drill itself is going through this slat, and it's also going through this section of the skid, which is the frame of the side. It allows me to drive these 80mm screws right the way through the slat into that skid, and then also into this section of the front frame. Now the entire box of the chicken coop is constructed. Now what we're going to do is start creating different shapes on it. This is going to be the front, and we're going to have a secondary box coming out of here, where the chickens, when they're inside, will step up into the nesting area. So what I need to do is cut myself out 3 holes in here to allow for the 3 chickens. So I'm going to get a measurement to the center, put a little mark right here, and then I want to have an opening of around about 180mm for the chickens. So I'll take it 90mm either side of my center point to here and here. I've got a little set square, so I'm going to square that up here and here. And what I have done, I'm leaving the 2 bottom ones, so when the chickens are inside, they have to hop up into their box. Just gives them that little bit more enclosure, which is what the chickens like. So we've squared it up the sides, and then I'm going to just, by freehand, create a little arch here. Of course, you can draw around a circular lid if you want to. And I'm going to drill a hole into here, get my jigsaw, and simply jig around, and then sections will fall out. Now the 3 holes are cut out for the chickens to enter the nesting box. I've given a little sand down around the edges, but we need to create a base for the bottom of this. Laura, have you got that base? Thank you. We're going to use a sheet of OSB board, but what we need to do is turn this onto the side. If you want to hold this bottom on there for me. There we go. We just line it up along that edge. I'm going to take my pencil. What I'm going to do is scribe the inside edge, but before I cut this, I'm going to put this down, I'm going to plant another piece of these skids from the bottom of the pallets onto it and transfer that line on there. So when I cut it down, it's actually going to sit on the bottom of the entire frame. So that's the base of the box firmly screwed in. I've notched around all of the entire frame on 4 sides, and I had to do that notching a little bit wider because the base had to come in on an angle to be able to be put into position to be firmly screwed down. So that's set for the moment. The next stage is the actual legs. Now, I'm going to be using the skids again, the very bottom part of the actual pallets. These are the area where they usually have about 3 of them, like this. And then of course the slats fit along the top, and it allows the forklift to go in and lift it up. So these are the strong part of the actual pallets themselves. But what we're going to do is cut these down and fix 2 together like this. And by screwing them together and standing them upright, it makes a good solid leg. And I've got 4 of them to make for the chicken coop. Now the length of the legs are going to be 520 millimeters. You have enough space for the chickens to be able to hide underneath there. So now I want to fix these together for the strength. So I'll draw a little line where that one's going to sit. I'm going to drill some pilot holes. And place some more glue on these, as they're got to be nice and strong for the legs. Line them up using the large 80mm screws again. I'm going to drive that in. And there we have our good solid leg. All we need to do is make 4 of them, and they're ready for the chicken coop. Now the 3 legs are in place. The 4th one, I'll show you how it's done. Plenty of glue in and around them 2 edges and also the top, because that's going to sit right in that corner, nice and tight. Again, I'm going to use the 18mm screws and screw a couple of them into the one section of the frame. Now our 4 legs there are quite solid, but what's going to make them even stronger is we get another piece of the skids and we place them in between like this. Again, a little bit of glue on the underside of them. And what it's going to do is just help hold the 4 legs into position, and it'll stop any movement at this sort of angle with the structure once it's complete. A couple of pilot holes. So that's going to hold them 2 legs together. I'm going to do the same together on these 2. Once they're braced up, we'll put 2 more in across there. It'll be perfect. Okay, so that is our final leg braced up nice and strong. The next stage is to build a secondary box, which is going to be the chicken nesting boxes. Now the secondary box where the chickens are going to lay the eggs is this small section here at the front. Now to construct this, it's a very similar method as we've done for the main chicken coop. It only has 3 sides and a base and then a roof. The reason being is because this is going to be screwed together and then actually mounted onto the side of the chicken coop. So these corners, I'll drop a little bit of glue down the edges to help strengthen it. The little pilot holes, because we're drilling and screwing right to the edge of the wood, and we don't want none of that to split. So that is the 3 sides screwed down nice and solid. I'm going to lift that and show you that this is going to be covered and mounted onto the side of the main chicken coop here. We can see the 3 openings there where the chickens will be able to come through. This will get mounted on. That's why we only need 3 sides to this. We're going to put a lid on it that's on hinges so we can lift it up and get at the eggs. We're going to put a base on it, and then we're also going to put a batten along the bottom to hold the weight for mounting it on. The final thing then with the chicken coop nesting area is to make little diversions in between them so they're nice and private. Now I've glued and clamped the batten along the front of the chicken coop here, and I'm going to screw it in from behind so it grabs onto that piece of timber. That's going to take the weight of the second box mounted onto the top. So this is the base I've just cut to size. Now hopefully should fit straight on to the bottom of this. Yep, perfect. I'll just apply a little bit of glue on that before we fix it down and screw it into the bottom. Pop a little pilot hole in these ends. That is our base now, firmly fixed to the bottom. Let's sit him on the coop. Perfect. Now he is in position. We're going to draw a little line across the top. And then we're going to drill directly below the line for some pilot holes. And I'll do the same thing, screw in from the back of this into this heavy piece of timber here, which will help take the weight and stop the small box coming away from the larger box. A little bit of glue on the back edge of this. One clamp, hold them into position, and the main weight of that box is sitting down now on that large batten that we put underneath earlier on. So I'm going to go around the back and screw it into position. So I've cut another piece of OSB, which should wedge in here nice and tight. This is going to act as a partition between the nesting box. I'll do another one for here, then I'm going to cut some more OSB board. One section is going to be for the roof of the nesting boxes, which of course is going to be hinged, we're opening up, and then one larger piece is going to sit directly on top for the roof with a small overhang of about 30mm right round the 3 sides, and then a larger overhang here, so when the rain falls off, it doesn't go to behind where the hinges are. So now to hinge this small roof onto the nesting boxes, I'm going to place it into position, just leaving a tiny little gap at the back. Got my hinges, I'm going to apply just there, so when I do screw them in, they're going to catch the strut here at the back. Likewise with this one here. It's not a very heavy roof, I mean it's only 11mm wide this is, so these smaller hinges should take that weight easy enough. Alright, try one on the opposite side just before we continue. Putting all 6 screws in just to double check it's going to open and close the way we want it. Perfect. Now of course it's only going to open up to about that height, gives you enough room to get your hands in to take the eggs of course, and our top roof, as we mentioned a moment ago, is going to hang over, so any water drips off there, continues onto the floor and doesn't go behind that area there. Now of course the main roof doesn't have to open, so this can be fixed down permanently. Again, I'm just leaving a little overhang both sides so the water drips off. Get one screw in, line it up. Check that edge is looking square to here. So now the main roof is fixed into position. This is an OSB board and the water is going to run off there. It's not going to last forever, of course, because it is wood, although it's treated. However, you can apply different type of treatments to the top to make it more permanently waterproof. Like a rubber basically glued on the top of it and tucked under the other sides, or you could use a garden felt or even a paint on rubber, which would seal this roof perfect. Now this is the back part of the chicken coop. Remember earlier when we made the actual door? That was this section. All it consisted of was, of course, the pallet slats, and we put a diagonal brace in there to keep it nice and sturdy. I put two larger hinges on the bottom of it there so it opens and closes just the way we did on the chicken nesting box's roof. Then I've got a small little chock of wood here. I've drilled a clearance hole in the top of it. I'm just going to screw that in. Keep it nice and secure, and then when I need to get access in there to do the cleaning, I turn that off, take the door down, and you can get straight in there. The only thing we have to do now is the entrance for the chickens. Now the chickens are going to need a way of getting up off the floor into the box itself. I've cut out a hole here, the same as what we did with the 3 holes going into the nesting boxes. I've fixed a little batten along the bottom of the opening there. Then I've got myself a scaffolding plank, another old reclaimed one. I've screwed a couple of more little battens in place there. That gives it a little bit of a ramp to get up and a bit of grip. I've drilled some pilot holes here, so I'm going to screw that down into position so that doesn't slip off. Once they grab, that should be nice and solid. Now what we need is to be able to lock them away at night time, because of course the chickens want to be away and they need to be secure. So we need a little gate that closes down like this and is easy to open up again in the morning. So how we do it, we place this into position, we put a little mark either side, just a couple of millimeters wider than what this off-cut piece of OSB board is, and then we stick a couple of small slats of wood across there, like this, screwing them into position. Now you can actually cut a little small piece off the slat or split it down the centre for either side of there. And goes on here and here, leaving that couple of little millimeters gap. Double check that your door fits inside there. It needs to be quite loose, but of course it does have to be risen in and out. And then to hold that in place, we're going to mount these across the front like so. Couple more screws in there, going right the way through the 2 of them. Another one in here. And that should start to hold this into position. And place the other one directly over the top, making it flush with the first batten you put on. that now creates a nice secure closed door for the evening times for the chickens, and of course you can get access to it in the morning to let them back out again. So hopefully I've inspired you to want to build your own chicken coop. Now if you'd like to see more how-to videos, please visit the website silverlinetools.com.